Welcome back, guys. Zell again, and this time we're looking at the Isham Blade Works and We collaboration Zeta prototype. Guys, I got to meet Elijah Isham while we were at Blade Show, and I got to spend quite a bit of time talking with him about various aspects of blade making, blade design, and, whatever else came up. And we ended up with the prototypes so that we could get some video review done, and I'm going to have to send them back to Elijah, and I really want one of these, Elijah. The other one's really cool, but I really love this one. And that's going to make this hard. You guys need to realize this is a prototype. It is not going to be a full Zell review. We're going to go through the knife. We're going to get a very close look at it. It may end up being a long video because, well, we're going to get a close look at it. And we're going to talk about Mr. Isham and the designs. So let's get started with this one. What we have here is 4.84 for a closed length, a handle thickness of 0.536, and a closed height of 1.34. Do note it's a prototype. All those are subject to change, and they are off of my calipers, so you may see some other numbers out there, and whenever we get to blade length, that'll be really important. We'll need to talk about that a little bit. But anyhow, you may see some other numbers out there. That's what came off of my calipers. And let's get a close look at it. We have this titanium and carbon fiber kind of split in the middle, yin-yang type of thing. And just look how well that fits. It's just a beautiful thing. And guys, this is a prototype, and there's only like 4 or 5 of these prototypes floating around out there. So it wasn't like we made a huge run of these things and got every little bug knocked out. They just took a lot of care. And even down here, let's see if we can get the light to show on this where we can see it. Well, I hope you can. They've left a little bit of the mill marks in so that you've got a little bit of traction right here. And that's a beautiful thing. I almost wish that they had done this up here as well. They didn't. It's nice and smooth here. But that is just a beautiful thing. That little bit of mill marking left, or texture. I'm going to call it texture because, it's very uniform and looks very nice. And we do have our titanium frame. It's been anodized and tumbled, and I love that look. It makes for a very rugged coating, because unless you really gouge the TI, it will stay looking just, it's going to change its look over time as you use it. But to people looking at it, the finish is always going to look good. And as we roll it around to the backside, we have the Isham and Zeta with a little alien down here. And we can see the carbon fiber meeting up and our M390 down there on the flipper tab. And on to the clip side, we have a sort of bolster lock with a long, we'll get into that. It's got a rather long lock bar insert. And we have a well-styled clip that works a lot better than I would have assumed. I've been able to carry this knife in just about any pants that I decided to with no issue. The clip is short, it's got plenty of tension, but not so much tension you can't get it popped over something like your 511s, and works good. Rolling around the top, you can see that it is pretty much perfectly centered. I think we get that thing square with the camera, which is sometimes hard. There we go. It is perfectly centered and lays down in there very nicely. All right, let's get some size comparison out of the way. Now that dang delicate trying to sneak up there. And we'll flip her open so that we can get full size comparisons. There's your Buck 110, your Rat Model 1, and it's right in there with size with those. However, It's an ounce or more less weight than both of those with more blade. So we'll pull this guy out of the way, and I want to pull one more kind of artsy knife up here. Okay, so really artsy knife up here with the Todd Bodega. Built in very much a similar way to the way we build knives. The Steelcraft Bodega is, of course, built by Riate Knives. And the thing I want you to see here is whenever we get to these slightly more artsy knives, we end up with blades that have some compromises in them. To achieve the artful look and achieve the utility in the case of this knife, we lose a little bit of what would be probably be a full height flat grind if this were, say, a Spyderco. Same thing with the Bodega. To end up with this fuller and all these lines on the blade that make it a Bodega and make it awesome, we lose just a little bit of that full height flat grind that we would have probably gotten if Sal or Eric Glesser would have designed this. Sal and Eric designed some beautiful blades, but they designed them, it seems, 100% for utility, which is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But once we get off that track, we end up losing just a little bit of that utility. And we'll talk more about this Bodega sometime in the future. What we end up with here, though, is just that little bit of flat grind that could have been higher, but I'm not complaining. Just pointing it out. And there's our full flat grind while we're talking about it, and our extreme utility knife right here with the Spyderco Delica. And yeah, it's still the burnt orange one. The regular orange guy, I don't know. We'll get it straightened out. We'll get him home. Maybe. So anyhow, now that we got that blade out, let's get a good look at it. And what we have is a big old chunk of M390. And it is about 3.7 inches long with an edge length of 3.75. And you are going to see a variety of numbers for that blade length, and there's a reason for that. I measure from the forwardmost point of the handle to the tip of the blade. I do that because most of the statutes I have read, if they designate how to measure a blade, that's how it's designated. So whether it be right or wrong, that's the number I want to use for overall blade length. Because that's, don't cite me if you get in trouble. But that, by the statutes that I've read, in most places, that's what you're going to come up against. And that's the way their statutes read to measure. That's why I do that, and that's why I sometimes come up with shorter blade lengths than edge lengths. And that's the deal here. 3.75 inch edge length, 3.7 inch blade. So, I know, when you're looking at the stat sheet, you're like, what? That can't be. Well, that's why they end up that way. And whenever we get a good look at this blade, this one happens to have kind of a bead blast satin finish with satin slightly polished flats. We do have a swedge, runs most of the way down the blade. On each side, we've got that Persian style, and oh, it's just a looker. And I can tell you this blade is one heck of a great utility blade. It comes up nice and thin behind the edge, and no, it doesn't have that full flat grind that we were talking about a minute ago, but it is high enough with the blade thickness of 4 millimeters that it still slices well. It's not one of those blades that you get a hold of and you're like, wow, this thing is just a big wedge. And anyhow, yeah, it's not been sharpened, as you can see, but and it has been messed with quite a bit. But the blade doesn't give you that problem with being just a big wide wedge, that wide. So it works really, really well. And from here, we're going to go to our pause and read card, and I'll be right back with you. All right, before we get into the mechanicals, I want to talk about Mr. Isham for just a moment. And I'll throw a picture up there of Elijah. Probably holding the Todd Knife and Tool t-shirt because, if we're going to do promotion, we might as well get a 2-for-1 deal, right? Anyhow, according to Elijah, he went to a knife show with his dad whenever he was a young man, about 6 years old, very young. And that got him interested in knives. And later on, he started kind of getting into bushcraft and decided to design some bushcraft knives, and he did. If you go over to his Instagram, which I'll try to remember to link down in the description box, he designed several fixed blades. In fact, one of his fixed blades, if you guys remember the field chopper, very, very similar to the field chopper that we made here at Todd Knife and Tool. And then he got some CAD programming, and he's got to work designing blades in CAD, and he's come up with some of what I'm going to call the coolest designs. They're a little out there. This one isn't so far out there, but we'll look at the Eschaton here pretty soon, and that one's pretty far out there. But Elijah designs with purpose. This knife, designed to be a utility knife with style. Also, in the design, thoughtful enough to put this hump or drop, however you'd like to say it, right here. Somewhat like Tashi does with his Future. I actually think this design pulls it off a little better, but Tashi was trying to do an integral, so a little bit of difference there. Which gives you the place to put your hand and not have any fear of running up on the blade, while still maintaining a very good utility knife. He thinks about the little details. Look at this sharpening choil. Most knife designers, including myself, would have just went with a round choil. Not Elijah. I've learned stuff from his design. This is one of those things. That little bit of style right there takes that sharpening choil from being a sharpening choil to a style element. And it does a good job. It gets you out there right in front of the plunge grind and looks really nice. And another point you may not know about Mr. Isham is he's still in his early 20s, guys. He's been designing for quite a while, several years, and he's just now purchased a mill. And that means that over time, and give him time, guys, learning how to run that mill is not something that happens overnight. And he's got a lot of obligations anymore. But what that means is over time, we're going to see Elijah Isham customs from him. And he's got, being in his early 20s, he's got a lot of time. He's got a lot of time to get really good at it, guys. He's already really good at designing knives. So, anyhow, the mechanicals of this knife. And here, pivot-wise, bearings and all of that, standard WE stuff. However, get a look across that blade. You see these little posts right here? Oh, there we go. There's a good shot of it right there. Those are your blade stops. They fall back into two little slots on either side of the handle scale, and that provides your blade stop. Whenever we've got the blade open, everything mates up very nicely. This cut here, our plunge grind, everything mates up like it should and looks beautiful. Our bolster lock, and the way this thing is working, you see down in there, we got a lock bar insert or inset lock up against this bolster, and it is pretty long and pretty thick for being what it is. And if you look way down in there, you can see we've got the whole edge of this up on the tang of the blade, which is exactly what you'd want to see with this style of lock. And it locks up, just like in all WE style, it locks up solid, no blade play, and unlocks easily. running on those ceramic ball bearings and ceramic detent. Makes for just a beautiful action. And speaking of that action, there you go. That little bitty flipper tab. Now, whenever you first pick one of these up, that little bitty flipper tab is going to give you fits. But, just like with mini knives, you spend a little time with that flipper tab, and you start to get the hang of it. And, of course, you can spidey flick it. And I haven't really tried to thumb flick it. I don't know if I can pull that off. Nope. I'm not good enough to do that. But there I can with my left hand. Sometimes my left hand's a little better than my right hand at things. Kind of weird, I know. But, I've got that issue. But anyhow, mechanically, it's sound. Very sound. You got, just like a lock bar insert, right here. Put on with those two screws. And just like a frame lock, we have the cutout running right up through here where we as EDM this out, and it's just beautiful. Fits up nicely. Super great. Let's get this thing in the pocket. And this is something that really, really surprised me. Most of these knives with pointy ends on them end up with too much knife sticking out of the pocket. But this gets back to Elijah and his design philosophies. He designed some stuff that's really far out there. Absolutely, if you've seen the Eschaton, that thing's crazy. But he strikes a balance considering how you're going to use the knife, how you're going to carry the knife. And to date, he is one of the designers that is doing this ridiculously good job of finding that balance. Getting you the cool design, but not making it a cool design that you can't use. So anyhow, that's how it rides in the pocket. Very nice for, such a big knife and one with kind of a pointy tail on it. And now, of course, let's do ergonomics. And ergonomics on this guy are very good. Just about any knife with this type of handle design, where we're very simple again. I've said this many, many times, but very simple with our handle design almost always equates to a very comfortable and useful handle. And it does here as well. Now, there is one issue with this prototype. This is a little pokey back here, but I'm already aware that we're going to be making some minor changes to this pocket clip. It's still going to retain its look, but there are going to be some minor changes to it to kind of fix that. But, there you go. And you can get it just about, well, not just about, you can get it any way you need to. It's just very, very well done. Anyhow, guys, let's get one more very good look at this knife. And guys, keep watching Isham Blade Works. Elijah is designing some wonderful stuff. His Odyssey series of knives are incredible, and he's not stopping. There's going to be more. And, like I said, he's got that mill now, and he's starting to learn how to use it. So we may see some full-on customs from Elijah himself. Now, give him time. Like I said, he's got to learn how to use that mill and learn how to make things happen out of steel and titanium, which may take some time. And in fact, I hope it does take some time and he takes the time to get it right. But keep watch on this guy. Like I said, I'll put his Instagram account down in the description below. And the Zeta. Elijah, it's really going to hurt me to put this thing back in the mail. Few knife designs go by that really, really touch me, but this one does. Makes it hard to review, makes it hard to talk about on camera. Actually, it makes it easy to talk a lot of words about. It makes it hard to be objective on camera. Because, to me, there's so much good here that any minor flaw I'm quite easily going to ignore, because the good outweighs any of that. Anyhow, guys, really appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with me for a few minutes talking about Elijah Isham's Zeta. Be coming from We Knife Company later in the year, probably up near December or so. And the expected MSRP is right around $300. So this is going to be a beautiful thing, and something that, it's going to be up there at $300, $250, $300 whenever it hits the stores. But at least it's accessible. At least it's not $800, $1,000, which it easily could be. And you guys have a wonderful day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.